Hello, science students. Mr. Zana here. To my students, I'm sorry I haven't been in class. I will be back after the break. To all other students, please make sure you're paying attention to this ed puzzle as it is your reteach if you did not receive a passing grade on one or both sections of your Unit 4 exam. So, as it says, Unit 4 reteach. We're going to be teaching about stars, galaxies, universe again, as well as going over the waves and wavelengths, the electromagnetic spectrum. So here we go. A star is born. Stars are born in a nebula. Okay? Stars are made out of burning hydrogen and helium. That's what gives off that light in the sky, is those two gases that are burning off. All right? Continuing with the star, a newly formed star is called a protostar, as I had mentioned before in the Ed Puzzle review. Proto, like a prototype, is the first of its kind or something new. So that's why a protostar is a newly formed star. A star spends the majority of its life as a main sequence star. So when you're looking at the HR diagram, you'll see the band of stars that go kind of back on an angle like this. Those are your main sequence stars. Most stars in our night sky are main sequence stars, and they spend the vast majority of their life as a main sequence star. With that being said, our sun is a main sequence star, and actually is small in comparison to the majority of other main sequence stars. Most other main sequence stars are up to 5 times larger than our sun. A nebula is a cloud of dust and gas where stars are born. So if stars are made of hydrogen and helium, you can imagine the gases inside a nebula are also predominantly hydrogen and helium. A galaxy is a system of billions of stars, dust, and gas held together by gravity. And in our case, we know that we also have planets inside our galaxy. We're not sure about other galaxies, but as far as ours, the Milky Way galaxy, we know that it contains planets as well as a moon. Galaxy continued. There are 3 main types of galaxies. We talked about them before, but let's go over them again. We have spiral. It looks like a pinwheel. It has the little arms coming off of it. It's going to be the one on the bottom left. We have elliptical. It's egg or oval shaped, and that's the one in the middle. And then we have a regular, which has no real defined shape. It's just sort of like a blob, and that's the one on the right. A universe. Our universe, it contains all matter in space, including many galaxies. So basically, the universe is all of space that we can see or imagine being able to see. All right, now we're on to the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, or HR diagram. This tells us the 2 things: the heat or temperature of a star, as well as the luminosity or brightness of a star. So if you're looking at the diagram and we start in the bottom right and we work our way to the left, you're going from coolest to hottest stars, okay? So the hottest stars are on the left. Now, if we're looking at the scale that goes up and down, from the bottom to the top, it goes from least bright to brightest stars, all right? You need to remember those, how that graph works. So coolest to hottest, dimmest to brightest, all right? So again, HR diagram, the temperature gets hotter as you go right to left. Luminosity or brightness goes from bottom to top. The stars at the top of the HR diagram are larger in mass, and therefore that's why they have a brighter or higher luminosity. If you go back and look at the HR diagram, you'll see these, the blue giants and the red supergiants, they're the largest of our stars, but look where they're at. They're at the very top, which means they have the brightest or most luminescent stars are at the top here, okay? It's because they have the largest mass, all right? And then the stars to the left in the HR diagram are the hottest of our stars. So again, if we're going back and looking at our HR diagram, you're going to see these ones here. These blue main sequence stars are going to be the hottest of all the stars on the HR diagram, all right? Now we're going to switch gears and talk about electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic waves are sorted by their wavelengths. So if you look here, starting at the top with AM radio, AM, FM radio, ham radio, walkie-talkies, those sort of things, short-range radios, maybe you use them out when you're walking or hiking or hunting. You have the little two-way radios. They have the largest, see how big these wavelengths are? They're large wavelengths, but because they're so large, they have very short frequency. But as you work closer to the bottom here, when we get all the way down here to gamma rays, you're going to see that gamma rays have very short wavelengths. See how squished up they are? But because they're so short, there's a higher frequency. You can put more of them in the same space as you can this one large wavelength up here. Okay? So, that being said, X-rays, PET scans, which are gamma rays, and ultrasounds are all types of waves used in the medical field. All right? The wavelength decreases as you move from radio waves, which have the largest, remember, they have the biggest, see how big they are? And as we move to the smallest rays, the wavelength decreases, it gets smaller. And you can see that here. Look how tiny the gap is between the waves. All right? So to wrap it up for wavelengths, the frequency of waves is the opposite to the wavelength. For example, radio waves have very large wavelengths, but they have very low frequency, short frequency. Whereas you have gamma rays that have really small wavelengths, but because they're so small, they happen more frequently. They have a higher frequency. So just remember that. If a question asks you if radio waves having a wavelength of, say, 30 meters and a gamma ray having a wavelength of 1 meter, which one has the most frequency? Just remember, the smaller the wavelength, the higher the frequency. The larger the wavelength, the shorter the frequency. All right? So I wish you a lot of luck on your retests. Myself and Ms. Canop will get those assigned out to you as soon as possible, and we will also let you know what the due dates are for those. Have a good one.